The night was calm, and the forest seemed to breathe in silence. A human traveler walked slowly along a narrow path, his boots brushing against fallen leaves. The air was cool, and mist curled up from the ground as though the earth itself was whispering secrets. He had wandered far from the road, searching for peace after many long days of travel. His bag was heavy, but his heart was heavier. He wanted only quiet, and this forest promised it. At the center of the woods, he found a lake. It was hidden almost like a secret world. The water was still and dark, but it reflected the silver of the moon above. The surface looked like a mirror, broken only by soft ripples. The man stopped, staring at the lake with quiet awe. He had never seen a place so still, so untouched. It felt alive, as though something unseen was watching him. He set down his bag near a tree and knelt by the water's edge. His fingers touched the surface, and a cold chill spread through his skin. It was refreshing, but something about it felt different, like the lake carried a strange energy. The traveler pulled back his hand and listened. The forest was not completely silent. There was a sound, faint at first, drifting across the water. It was not the call of a bird nor the howl of a wolf. It was softer, fragile, like a broken melody. A voice. The man froze, his breath caught in his chest. He leaned closer to the water, straining his ears. The sound came again, gentle, trembling, and filled with sadness. It was the sound of someone crying. He stood quickly, his eyes sweeping across the lake. The mist grew thicker, rolling across the surface like a veil. Then through the haze he saw it, a figure. At first he thought it was the reflection of the moon, a trick of the light. But then it moved. A woman. She was in the water, her form glowing faintly in the dark. Her hair floated around her like strands of silver, shimmering with each ripple. Her skin was pale with a strange radiance, not like any human he had ever seen. She was sitting in the shallow edge of the lake, hugging herself as though she carried unbearable shame. The man's heart pounded. He had seen strange creatures before on his travels, but never something like this. She was not of his world. She was alien. Before he could move, her head turned. The glow of her eyes met his, wide with fear. She gasped softly, pulling her arms tighter around her body. The human stepped back, raising his hands in peace, showing he meant no harm. He wanted to speak, but no words came. The silence between them grew heavy, broken only by the trembling sound of her voice. "Human, please." Her words were weak, almost broken by tears. "Help me," the man blinked in shock. She spoke his language, though her accent was strange, the syllables soft and foreign. He tried to answer, but before he could, she covered her face and sobbed. Her body shook and her glow dimmed like a fading star. He felt an urge to move closer, but he hesitated. She was alien. Dangerous, perhaps. Yet something in her voice told him otherwise. It was not the cry of a predator. It was the cry of someone lost, someone hurt. Why are you crying?" he finally asked, his voice low, almost whispering into the mist. She lowered her hands just enough for him to see her eyes glisten with tears. "They stole them. My clothes. I was bathing here and they took them. They laughed, they ran. I have nothing." Her voice cracked with shame. "I cannot leave the water. Human, please, I beg you." The traveler's chest tightened. He looked around the forest, half expecting to see shadows of whoever had done this, but the woods remained still. He turned back to her, watching her arms wrapped tightly across her chest. He should have walked away. This was not his problem. Yet he could not. The sound of her cry, the helpless look in her glowing eyes, pulled at him like chains. She was alone, vulnerable, and asking for help. The mist rolled thicker across the lake, and the forest seemed to lean closer, as if listening to this secret meeting. The man felt his heart beat faster. He did not know what danger might come, but one truth was clear. This night would not be silent anymore. He picked up his bag slowly, eyes still on her. "I will listen," he said quietly. "Tell me what happened." The alien woman's sobs softened. For the first time, she looked at him not with fear, but with fragile hope. The moonlight glowed brighter across the lake, and the silence broke into a story that neither of them would ever forget. The traveler stood at the edge of the silent lake, his breath caught in the cool night air. The alien woman's words echoed inside his mind. "They stole them. My clothes. Human, please, I beg you." Her trembling voice carried both shame and desperation, and he could feel her fear like a weight pressing against his chest. For a long moment, he said nothing. His mind wrestled with questions. Who had stolen from her? Were they still close by? And why would anyone treat her with such cruelty? She was fragile, not some monster to be hunted. Yet whoever had taken her things saw her only as a victim to mock. The woman's body shimmered faintly in the moonlight, her glow pulsing with each sob. She clutched herself tightly, trying to hide from his eyes. The water lapped against her arms as if trying to comfort her. "I cannot leave the lake like this," she whispered, her voice cracking. "If they find me again, I will not survive. Please, please help me." The traveler stepped a little closer, though he kept his hands raised to show he meant no harm. "You speak my language," he said gently, his tone careful, as though each word could shatter the fragile moment. "How? Who taught you?" Her glowing eyes flicked toward him, then back down to the water. "We listen. We learn. You're kind. You make so much noise it is easy to hear. But we do not speak with humans. Not often. Never like this." She hesitated before adding in a trembling breath, "I would not speak at all. But I have no choice." The man studied her, realizing how much this plea cost her. She wasn't only asking for help. She was breaking rules, maybe even betraying her people's ways just to beg him. He knelt slowly by the water's edge. "Tell me what happened," he urged. Her gaze shifted to the dark forest around them, her voice dropping lower. "I came to bathe here in secret. This lake is hidden safe, or so I believed. But I was wrong. A group of villagers saw me. They laughed at me, called me strange, cursed me. I hid, but they stole my robes, the only protection I had. Without them, I am nothing but prey," she shivered. "If I walk among them like this, they will capture me, sell me, parade me as a trophy. I cannot face that shame." Her words burned with truth. The traveler clenched his fists, anger rising in his chest. He had known greed, cruelty, and mockery among humans before, but to do this to someone helpless, it felt vile. Yet what could he do? He was one man, a wanderer with no ties, no weapons but his will. Still, looking at her tear-streaked face, he knew walking away was impossible. The forest stirred suddenly. A distant laugh carried through the trees. The alien woman flinched, pulling deeper into the lake until only her shoulders and glowing hair showed above the water. Her eyes darted around, wide with terror. "They are still near," she whispered. "I can feel them." The man turned, scanning the tree line. Shadows stretched long in the moonlight, but he saw nothing. Still, the echo of cruel voices hung in the air, proof that the danger wasn't gone. His jaw tightened. He couldn't let them find her again. He crouched lower, his voice calm but firm. "Listen to me. You are not alone now. I will help you. I will get your clothes back." The alien woman's lips parted in disbelief. Her glowing eyes searched his face as if trying to decide whether to trust him. "Why?" she whispered. "Why risk yourself for me? I am not your kind." "I am nothing to you." The man held her gaze. "Because you asked for help," he said simply. "And because it is the right thing to do." Her sobs slowed, though her body still shook with fear. For the first time, hope flickered in her expression. "If you truly mean this," she whispered, her voice fragile, "then you are not like the others. You are different." He gave a faint, grim smile. "Maybe, or maybe I'm just stubborn. Either way, I won't let them win." The woman drew in a trembling breath, her glow softening. She lowered her head, her voice little more than a whisper. "Then please hurry. The night is not safe. If they return, I will not have the strength to hide again." The traveler rose, determination burning in his chest. He had no plan yet, no map of where to find the stolen clothes. But he knew one thing: he couldn't stand by while cruelty thrived. The villagers had mocked her, but they would not laugh forever. He slung his bag over his shoulder, glancing back at the shimmering figure in the water. She looked at him as though he were her last chance, her last fragile hope in a world that had turned cruel. The night air grew colder, and the mist thickened across the lake. Somewhere in the forest, a twig snapped. The man took a step forward, his mind already racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The hunt for her stolen garments would not be easy, but in that moment he knew he had already chosen his path. The alien woman's cry for help had become his mission. And the forest, once silent, now felt alive with unseen eyes watching his every move. The forest around the lake had grown darker, as if the shadows themselves wanted to hide secrets. The human traveler stood quietly, scanning the trees, every muscle tense. The alien woman remained half submerged in the water, her glowing form trembling as ripples spread around her. The silence was thick, but the echo of distant laughter still lingered in his ears. He could not shake the feeling that eyes were watching them from the gloom. The woman hugged her arms tighter around her chest, lowering herself deeper into the water. "If they return," she whispered, "I will be finished. They will bind me, parade me. I will never see freedom again." Her voice cracked, raw with fear. "My kind are not meant to be seen this way. Without my robes, I'm exposed, weak." The traveler's gaze swept over the forest edge once more. He had faced thieves and tricksters before, but never this kind of cruelty. Mocking someone who had no defense, stripping them not only of clothing, but of dignity. He clenched his jaw. The fear in her voice made it clear. Those villagers would come back. He crouched near the water's edge, lowering his tone so only she could hear. "Listen to me. You're not weak. They made you feel small because they are cowards. But you are still standing, still breathing. That takes strength." Her glowing eyes flicked toward him. For a moment she almost believed him, but then her gaze darted nervously to the trees again. "Strength means nothing if they find me. They will not stop, human. They will hunt. They will whisper. They will drag me through their streets as a prize. I fear their cruelty more than their ropes." The traveler felt the weight of her words. He knew she wasn't only afraid of being captured. She was afraid of being seen, afraid of becoming a spectacle for greedy eyes. That fear was worse than chains. He exhaled slowly. "Then we cannot let them see you again." But even as he said it, the forest betrayed them. A branch cracked in the distance. The sound was faint but sharp, like a warning. The woman gasped, pulling back into the water until only her glowing eyes peeked above the surface. "They are close," she whispered. The man scanned the tree line, heart hammering. The mist made it impossible to tell how far the intruders were. Every shadow looked alive. Every movement of the leaves felt like footsteps. The danger wasn't just outside the forest, it was closing in. He turned back to the woman. "You must stay hidden. Do not move until I return. No matter what you hear, stay beneath the water if you must." She shook her head in panic. "If they see you, they will harm you. Why risk yourself? Why not leave me here and walk away?" His expression hardened. "Because you asked for help." For a long moment she said nothing. Her glowing eyes shimmered with fear, but also with something else, trust beginning to take root. She nodded slowly, sinking deeper into the lake's shadows. The traveler straightened, gripping the strap of his bag. He forced his steps to remain steady as he moved toward the forest. Each rustle of the leaves felt like a signal, each whisper of wind like a taunt. He kept low, careful not to snap any twigs underfoot. As he crept closer to the sound, voices began to form in the darkness. They were low at first, then sharper, rising into cruel laughter. She glowed like a lantern in the water. One voice jeered, "And begged us with those strange eyes," another mocked. "Worth more than gold, that one. We should drag her to the market," the man's fist tightened. The villagers weren't just thieves, they were hunters, and she was their prey. His breath grew steady as he leaned against a tree trunk, listening. The villagers' voices grew clearer. He could see shapes moving between the trees, torchlight flickering against bark. They carried something draped over a stick, swinging carelessly as they joked. A faint shimmer of silver cloth hung from it. Her stolen robes. The man's chest burned with anger. He could return to the alien woman now, warn her to flee deeper into the lake. But the sight of the villagers mocking her, treating her dignity as a toy, hardened his resolve. He would not let them win. Still, fear lingered inside him. Not fear of the men themselves, but fear of what would happen if he failed. If they discovered her glowing in the lake, she would be powerless. And if they caught him, she would be left with no one. The night pressed heavier around him. He ducked lower, waiting for the villagers to pass, his mind racing. Could he take them head on? No, there were too many. Could he steal the robes back? Perhaps, but the risk was high. The alien woman's trembling plea echoed in his memory. "Human, please, I beg you." He breathed in the cold night air, steadying himself. He had made his choice already. Fear was clawing at him, but he would not back down. For the alien woman waiting in the lake, fear had already taken enough, and so, in the darkness of the forest, with only the moonlight to guide him, the traveler prepared himself. The villagers were close, their torches flickering. The danger was real, the outcome uncertain, but he knew one thing for sure. This night would test not just his courage, but hers. The fear of discovery was no longer just hers to carry. It was his as well. The forest breathed with danger. Every flicker of torchlight, every rustle of leaves carried the weight of a predator's gaze. The human traveler crouched low behind the thick roots of an old oak, his eyes locked on the group of villagers ahead. Their laughter echoed through the night, cruel and mocking, breaking the silence of the woods. They carried the alien woman's stolen robes draped over a stick, waving them like a trophy. To them it was a game. To her it was everything. The traveler's jaw clenched as he listened to their voices, rough and careless. "She begged us," one of them sneered, holding up a strip of the shimmering fabric. "Begged like some animal. You should have seen her face." The others laughed, stomping their boots into the soft ground. Another man spat into the dirt and growled, "We should have dragged her with us. A glowing creature like that? Worth more than gold. People would pay to see her locked in a cage." The traveler's fists tightened at his sides. Their words were poison. They saw her not as a living being, not as someone with fear and dignity, but as property, something to be owned, displayed, and sold. His heartbeat thundered in his chest, but his face remained calm. He couldn't let rage guide him now. Hidden in the shadows, he studied them carefully. There were 4 of them, all armed with knives, clubs, and the arrogance of men who thought themselves untouchable. They laughed too loudly, drank from leather flasks, and boasted of their cruelty. They were dangerous but careless. Carelessness could be exploited. The traveler pulled back, his body pressed against the rough bark of the oak. His thoughts raced. If he rushed them now, it would be suicide. But if he waited too long, they might return to the lake and the alien woman would be discovered. He needed to strike at the right moment, when they least expected it. A branch cracked nearby. The traveler froze, his breath caught. It hadn't been him. The villagers stopped laughing. Their heads turned, torches raised high. The forest went silent. Then slowly one of them smirked. "She's still here," he hissed. "Watching us." The others grinned, their eyes glinting with greedy excitement. "The glowing witch," another spat. "Let's flush her out." The lake isn't far. The traveler's heart dropped. If they returned to the water, they would find her. She was hiding, trembling in the shadows of the lake, waiting for him. If they saw even a glimpse of her glowing form, she would be doomed. He couldn't let that happen. Pushing down his fear, he stepped out from behind the tree, his figure breaking the line of shadows. His voice cut through the night, calm but sharp. "You're looking for me." The torches swung toward him. The villagers blinked in surprise, then narrowed their eyes. One barked a laugh. "And who are you, stranger? Another fool wandering the woods?" The traveler raised his chin. "I heard your laughter. I saw what you carry. Those robes don't belong to you." His voice was firm, steady, though his pulse hammered. "Give them back." For a moment, silence hung between them. Then the forest erupted with cruel laughter. "Give them back?" The leader sneered, stepping forward with a knife in hand. "Do you know what you're asking for? That fabric isn't just cloth, it's treasure, and no fool of a wanderer will take it from us." The traveler's eyes flicked briefly to the robes, shimmering faintly in the torchlight, then back to their faces. "It's not treasure. It's hers. You had no right." The villagers closed in, circling him like wolves. One jabbed a club into the dirt, sneering. Big words for a man alone. Alone. The word echoed in his mind. Yes, he was alone. No allies, no weapons beyond his wits, and the determination burning in his chest. But he was not fighting for himself. He was fighting for the woman trembling in the lake, praying he would return. That thought steeled him. The leader lunged first, knife glinting in the torchlight. The traveler sidestepped quickly, pushing his shoulder hard into the man's ribs. The knife wielder stumbled, cursing as the others roared. The second swung his club, but the traveler ducked low, grabbing a handful of dirt and flinging it into the man's eyes. The villager screamed, dropping the weapon and clawing at his face. The fight grew chaotic, the forest echoing with shouts and the crack of branches underfoot. The traveler moved swiftly, not relying on brute strength but on timing, precision, and the element of surprise. Still, there were too many. A heavy fist slammed into his side, knocking the breath from his lungs. He staggered but stayed on his feet. Another villager raised the shimmering robes high, taunting him. "This is ours now, stranger. Go back to your shadows before you lose more than pride." The traveler's chest heaved, sweat stinging his eyes. He was battered, outnumbered, and unarmed. But retreat was not an option. The alien woman's trust, her desperate plea, burned in his mind. "Human, please, help me." He straightened slowly, his voice cutting through their taunts. "You laugh now, but I promise you, those robes will not leave this forest with you." The villagers sneered, but unease flickered across their faces. They had expected an easy fight. Instead, they had found a man who would not break, and though he stood alone, he carried the weight of another's hope, a burden far heavier than fear. The hidden enemy was no longer just the villagers with their torches and knives. The true enemy was cruelty itself, and the traveler had already chosen his side. The forest stood thick with tension. The glow of the villagers' torches painted the trunks in fiery streaks, shadows bending and twisting like restless spirits. The human traveler stood with his chest heaving, bruises aching, yet his eyes were steady. He had bought himself a sliver of time, but not enough. The alien woman was still at the lake, alone and trembling, waiting for him. If the villagers broke past him, they would find her. He could not allow it. He stepped back, drawing them farther from the water. Each footfall was careful, deliberate. His voice was firm, though the ache in his ribs threatened to break him. If you want to fight, then fight me. But leave what isn't yours. Those robes do not belong to you. The leader of the group laughed harshly, knife glinting in his hand. You think you can stand against us all? You've no weapon, no allies. You'll be food for the earth before dawn. The traveler's mind raced. He had no blade, no club, and no strength to overpower 4 men at once. But he had something sharper than steel. Wits. He studied them. Their greed, their arrogance, their careless grip on what they thought was already won. He forced his lips into a calm smile. Then let's make a game of it. You want to keep the robes? Fine. But if I can take them from you, you leave this forest and never return. The men exchanged glances, laughter bubbling among them. One spat into the dirt. A game? You're already half broken. What hope do you have? The traveler leaned on a tree, pretending to be weaker than he was. His voice dropped lower, baiting them. Unless you're afraid. Unless even with your numbers, you doubt you can hold on to what you stole. The insult struck like a spark in dry grass. Their pride flared instantly. The leader snarled, tightening his grip on the shimmering robes. Afraid? Of you? Never. He motioned to the others. Hold the torches. I'll finish this myself. The traveler's heart quickened. This was what he needed. Divide them. Break their unity. With the leader's arrogance pulling him forward, the others would hang back, laughing instead of helping. The leader charged, knife flashing. The traveler sidestepped sharply, pulling a branch from the ground and swinging it across the man's wrist. The knife clattered into the leaves, lost in the dark. The leader cursed, stumbling. The robe slipped from his grasp, dangling loosely in the traveler's reach. Adrenaline surged. The traveler snatched the shimmering fabric, clutching it to his chest. The villagers shouted in outrage, torches whipping through the air as they lunged toward him. Now came the true risk. Instead of running deeper into the forest, the traveler darted sideways, weaving between trees, pulling the men off balance. They tripped over roots and crashed into one another, swearing as their torches sputtered. He ran not away from them, but in a circle, leading them far from the lake's edge. Every step tore pain through his ribs, but he pressed on. Behind him, their shouts grew louder, their boots thundering across the earth. One torch went out, swallowed by the damp mist. Another man fell, screaming as he twisted his ankle on a stone. The chaos was working in his favor. Still, the robes felt heavy in his arms, more than cloth. They were trust itself. The alien woman had placed her hope in him, and he could not fail her now. At last he ducked behind a thick cluster of rocks, pressing himself low as the villagers stormed past, their torches swinging wildly. Their voices grew distant, echoing curses into the night. Silence returned. The traveler crouched, lungs burning, clutching the shimmering fabric tightly. The risky plan had worked, for now. But he knew they would not give up so easily. When they realized he had tricked them, they would turn back, angrier than before. He could not waste another moment. With shaking legs, he hurried back through the forest, careful to avoid the paths the villagers had taken. His thoughts burned like fire. She must still be safe. She must be waiting. At the lake's edge, the mist rolled heavier than before. as if the forest itself guarded her secret. He stepped forward, whispering urgently, "It's me. I'm back." The water rippled. Slowly, the alien woman rose from the lake, her glowing form breaking through the mist. Her eyes widened when she saw what he carried. Her voice trembled. "You? You have them." He knelt quickly, placing the robes on the shore. The shimmering fabric glowed faintly, as though it had been waiting to return to her. "Hurry," he urged. "They won't stop. You need to be ready to leave." Her trembling hands reached for the cloth, clutching it as if it were life itself. Tears glistened in her glowing eyes. "You risked everything, for me." He nodded, his voice quiet but resolute. "I told you. You asked for help, and I do not break my word." For the first time since he had seen her, she smiled, a fragile, trembling smile, but real. She pressed the robes to her chest, her glow brightening with gratitude. Then perhaps, not all humans are as cruel as I feared. Behind them, the forest still stirred with danger. The villagers would return soon, and the night was far from safe. But for this moment, at least, the traveler had won. The risky plan had given her hope, and hope was stronger than fear. The alien woman clutched her robes to her chest as though they were a shield against the world. The traveler kept his eyes fixed on the tree line, listening to the forest breathe. He knew the villagers weren't finished. Greed did not give up easily, and men who laughed at cruelty rarely accepted defeat. Somewhere out there they were regrouping, torches flaring back to life, knives gripped tighter than before. "Put them on," he urged softly, his voice low but steady. "You'll feel stronger once you do." Her glowing fingers trembled as she wrapped the shimmering fabric around her shoulders. It seemed to mold itself back to her body, hugging her form with a light that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. The moment she was covered, her trembling eased, though her eyes still carried fear. "They will come again," she whispered, glancing toward the trees. "They will not forgive what you've done." The traveler nodded grimly. "I know. That's why we must leave the lake. If they find us here, it's over." Before she could answer, the night erupted. Shouts tore through the mist, closer this time, louder. Torches flickered like fiery eyes in the distance. The villagers had found their path back. The woman gasped, sinking toward the water again, but the traveler grabbed her arm firmly. "No," he said. "They'll see your glow in the water. You must stay with me. Trust me." Her wide eyes met his. For a moment, fear and doubt warred in her face. Then, with a trembling breath, she nodded. They moved quickly, slipping into the shadows at the far side of the lake. The traveler led her along a narrow deer trail, careful to keep them low and silent. Each step was urgent but measured. Running blindly would only draw attention. Behind them, the villagers' voices grew louder, their curses echoing. "She's here! She must be!" one of them shouted. Another voice followed, sharp with fury. "Find the thief! Find them both!" The woman shuddered, gripping her robes tightly. "If they catch us," she whispered. "They won't," the traveler said, though his own heart thundered. He could not let her see his doubt. He had chosen this path, and now he had to walk it to the end. They ducked beneath low branches, their breaths fogging in the cool air. The forest seemed alive with tension. Every owl's call, every snapping twig felt like a warning. The traveler guided her toward a rocky incline, pointing silently for her to climb. She hesitated, then scrambled upward, her glowing robes shimmering faintly in the dark. Halfway up, a sudden flare of torchlight broke through the trees. The villagers had found the lakeshore. Their shouts grew more furious as they realized the robes were gone. "They've taken them. That stranger, he has her with him." The traveler's blood ran cold. The chase had begun. "Go," he urged the alien woman, giving her a boost up the rocks. She scrambled to the top, pulling herself into the shadows above. He followed, lungs burning, every muscle screaming with effort. From the ridge, they could see the villagers swarming the lake below. Torches bobbed like angry stars, stabbing the mist with fire. Knives glinted, clubs swung in frustration. The men cursed the stranger's name, vowing revenge. The woman clutched the traveler's arm, her voice trembling. "We cannot escape them. They will hunt until morning. I will be the cause of your death." He shook his head firmly. "No. You'll be the reason I keep fighting." They pressed onward, weaving through rocks and brambles. The path grew steeper, but the higher they climbed, the thicker the mist became. At times the woman stumbled, but the traveler's hand was always there to steady her. Step by step he guided her deeper into safety, even as the voices of their pursuers echoed below. Then, just as hope began to stir, disaster struck. One of the villagers spotted them, a sharp-eyed man with a torch raised high. "There, on the ridge!" he roared. The forest exploded with noise. Torches swung upward and shouts carried across the night. The villagers charged the slope, their fury unleashed. The traveler's heart pounded. They had only moments before being surrounded. He pulled the alien woman close, whispering urgently, "When I tell you, run. Do not stop, no matter what happens." Her glowing eyes filled with fear. "I cannot leave you. You must," he cut in firmly. "I promise to help you, and I will. But you must promise to survive." Before she could argue, the villagers began climbing the ridge, their weapons flashing. The traveler grabbed a fallen branch, gripping it like a staff. He positioned himself between her and the attackers, ready to hold them off. "Go," he shouted. The alien woman hesitated for a heartbeat torn between fear and trust. Then, with tears streaming down her glowing cheeks, she turned and fled into the mist. The traveler faced the charging villagers, his body battered but his spirit unbroken. The branch felt heavy, but his resolve was heavier. Each step the villagers took closer only strengthened his will. This was the rescue, not just returning her robes, but giving her the chance to live free, even if it cost him everything. As the villagers closed in, their torches blazing, the traveler stood tall in the mist, defiant against the cruelty that sought to claim her. The night crackled with tension, and the forest itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see if one man's courage could outshine a crowd's greed. The ridge trembled under the weight of boots pounding upward. Torches clawed through the mist, flaring like angry fireflies. The traveler's grip tightened on the branch he had taken as a weapon. His lungs still burned from the climb, but his stance did not waver. Behind him, the alien woman had vanished into the safety of the mist, her glowing robes flickering faintly as she ran. That was all he needed, her escape. The villagers closed in with snarls and curses. "You think you can steal from us?" The leader roared, his face twisted with rage. "You'll pay with blood." The traveler's voice rang steady, even as his body ached. "It was never yours to steal, and you'll never touch her again." The men rushed him, blades flashing. The traveler ducked the first strike, swinging his branch across the attacker's face. The man stumbled back, torch tumbling into the dirt. Another lunged, club raised high, but the traveler shifted his weight and slammed the branch into the man's knee. The crack echoed, followed by a scream, but he could not win forever. There were too many, and each blow chipped at his strength. Blood trickled from a cut on his brow, his breath sharp and uneven. Yet he held his ground, every strike meant to delay, not to conquer. His purpose wasn't to defeat them, it was to buy her time. The villagers grew frustrated. "He's stalling," one spat. "The witch is running further." "Then finish him?" The leader barked. Blades gleamed as they surged forward together. The traveler braced himself, sweat stinging his eyes. For a moment, the weight of hopelessness pressed against him. He might not survive this night. But then through the mist he saw a faint glow, her glow. She had not fled completely. She was watching, torn between fear and courage. Their eyes met across the distance, and in that instant something passed between them, something stronger than words. She would not abandon him. The villagers noticed too. One sneered. "There she is!"
"Still close!"
The alien woman's glow flared brighter as she stepped forward, robes flowing like living light. She raised her hands, and a pulse of energy rippled through the mist. The torches flickered wildly, sputtering as though smothered by unseen wind. The villagers staggered back, their bravado cracking into fear. "What is this?" One cried, "She's cursed." Another shouted, dropping his torch and stumbling away. The leader snarled, trying to hold the others together. "Stand your ground." "It's just a trick." But his voice faltered as the glow around her intensified. Her robes shimmered like starlight, her eyes blazing with defiance. The traveler's heart swelled. She was no longer the trembling woman in the water. With her dignity restored, she stood tall, her fear replaced by strength. The villagers broke. Their courage shattered. They fled into the forest, their torches scattering like dying fireflies. Their curses faded into the night until only silence remained. The traveler dropped to his knees, exhaustion finally claiming him. His branch fell uselessly at his side. His body trembled with pain, but relief washed over him. The danger had passed. The alien woman hurried to his side, kneeling beside him. Her glowing hands touched his face gently, and warmth spread across his skin. The bleeding slowed, the pain dulled. She was healing him, perhaps not fully, but enough to ease his suffering. "You should have left me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "No human would have risked so much." "Why did you?" The traveler met her eyes, his own heavy with fatigue but clear with truth. "Because you asked, and because no one deserves to be treated the way they treated you." Tears shimmered in her glowing eyes. "Then you are different. You are not like the others." He gave a faint smile. "Maybe I'm just stubborn." She laughed softly through her tears, the sound fragile but filled with relief. For a long moment, they simply sat together in the mist, the forest quiet around them. The world felt paused, as though it recognized the bond forged between them. At last she rose, helping him to his feet. "I cannot return to the lake," she said softly. "They will hunt me there again, but I will remember this night. I will remember you." He nodded slowly, leaning on her for support. "And I will remember you, your cry for help, and your courage when you stood against them." They walked together until the path split. The mist thinned, and the first light of dawn painted the horizon. She stopped, turning to him with a look both sorrowful and hopeful. "Our paths may not cross again," she said gently, "but you have changed the way I see your kind. You gave me more than robes. You gave me trust." The traveler's chest tightened. He wanted to say more, to ask her to stay, but he knew her journey was her own and his was elsewhere. He nodded, voice quiet. "Then let that trust carry you. Wherever you go, remember, you are not alone." She touched his hand briefly, her glow pulsing warmly, then stepped back into the mist. With each step she took, her light grew fainter until she was gone. The traveler stood alone, battered and weary, but with a heart strangely lighter. The bond between them would not fade, even if they never met again. And as the dawn broke fully across the forest, the silence returned to the lake. But it was no longer a silence of fear. It was the silence of peace, born from a night where courage and kindness had defeated cruelty. The bond had been forged, not by blood or duty, but by a single cry for help, and the human who answered it.